Yeah. All right. Well, solution.
Bela Lugosi's dead.
Bela Lugosi is dead. And
The bats have left the bell tower, distant black.
I too have listened to early '80s goth music.
Dude, that's the song that friggin' leads into The Hunger.
I know. We were just talking about that.
But we were
talking about it on Discord, not right
Yes.
now. What?
Yeah.
What? That's Bauhaus.
Yes.
I was thinking
It's Bauhaus. Yeah.
I was like, that's the Damned, but that's not the Damned. That's Bauhaus.
No, I think the Damned covered it. The Damned covered it,
I think.
but a lot of people, surprising number of people, have actually covered Bela Lugosi's Dead. But
that's
nuts in the mouth, I say.
That's probably the Louie of goth songs in terms of the number of people who have covered it.
No, that would be that would be a Sisters of Mercy song actually, and Dominion. Oh
yeah.
no, This Corrosion. This Corrosion is the Louie Louie.
This Corrosion. Yeah,
Hey
This Corrosion.
You got me.
Now,
I
sing this nugget to me.
my goth Newbury is showing. I've never even listened to Sisters of Mercy.
You're not. I'd like to say you're not missing much, but there is some significant theatrics going into Andrew Eldridge's performances. I'm not lying. Looks surprisingly like me and Mike's friend Bryce, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, him and Bryce do actually look really similar. It's
Oh,
a little disturbing.
Yeah.
Bryce works for Google. So maybe I should say, hey, dude, we need to do this thing.
I have been enjoying Love and Rockets on your recommendation, Mike, since I started listening to it on Spotify, and I like it.
Yeah, they're it's basically just Bauhaus, but with the it's literally Bauhaus, but Peter Murphy's not singing; he's just like playing bass or guitar. It's literally the same band, just reconfigured, which is kind of cool.
They're
actually.
not even missing a member.
I don't think so.
So
I think it's all just the same dudes. It's just that they changed up
Kind
who's
of like
singing.
Joy Division and
New Order.
yeah. Except their lead singer passed away.
Yeah, that's why they called it New
yeah.
Order, because Ian was dead, and everyone's like, no band survives the death of its lead singer. We know, we're a different band.
They had also made a pact when Ian was still alive, and I think part of it was because they knew he was not in great health, because they couldn't really treat the kind of epilepsy he had at the time, like when he was alive. They were just like, hey, if somebody dies, we can keep making music, but it can't be Joy Division. We have to, like, new name, new format, something, and they were like, yeah, okay.
That's fair.
Let's do it.
That's a reasonable rule.
Yeah, no, I thought so. I mean, I just thought it was cool that they negotiated it ahead of time.
There we go.
So,
Würrk, damn it.
Würrk, damn it.
Yes, I'm trying to jury rig a stand here.
That would be a good name for a goth band. Würrk, damn it. Or maybe just
Yeah,
an
well, I'll
album.
tell you what I know from the goth community. And working
it could be
is
W-U with an umlaut R-K.
Yeah, maybe we should call up. Maybe we should call up the old members of Typo Negative. I mean, they ain't doing nothing since Peter Steele died. Hey, so we got a new idea for you guys.
Würrk. Now I'm just picturing that in my head. Würrk.
I mean, I can do a fairly decent Peter Steele impression. I can be your new lead singer.
I'm just going to use that as the title for the podcast now. Some configuration thereof, because the only other title I was going to come up with was When Vampires Suck, and I wasn't in love with it.
How about You Suck?
Yeah, no, it's too general. It's too general, and plus there was that movie Vampires Suck, which was that terrible.
Oh yeah,
terrible parody film that sub Zucker Brothers trash that was running through the early 2000s.
I mean, yeah, considering that the
worse than Scary
primary
Movie,
subject
yeah.
of our podcast tonight did it so much better.
Yes. Yes. We should probably get on with what the primary subject of our podcast is. We've been recording since we were talking about computers.
Okay.
So
Well,
I'll
that's
just
fine.
cut things off at some point, and we'll bring it into...
you'll do your editing magic and
bring it
maybe
into...
even
He's a good editor.
I try, man. I try.
throw in a horse with no name in there. somewhere.
La 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 la.
Doon, 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 doon.
It's that desert.
Yeah, I gave that a listen before we got on here. I was like rolling. Oh god, it was so funny. Well done.
and
Like very seriously, well done. That was hilarious. Might actually be our best episode.
Yeah, the Dune supercut, which was referenced like 2 or 3 episodes ago as a joke, and then when we recorded the last real episode, Kieran said, "Andrew, do this for April Fools," and I was like, "Okay." So then I did, and so now you get 2 podcasts this month, 2 April podcasts. April is the greatest month. Or the cruelest, depending on one's point of view.
Well, the weather tells me that it may have to be the cruelest.
The cruelest. April is the cruelest month. So we are talking about vampires in April, because that makes sense. And also we're specifically talking about vampire comedy. That's what you guys wanted to do. You wanted to do vampire comedy, which is a great idea. Because I think that particular genre lends itself very well to being parodied and made fun of.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes, because vampires are super serious, especially when you're watching Brad Pitt and what's his face, Top Gun
Tom
boy.
Cruise.
Tom Cruise.
The super serious bisexual vampires.
That's one of those movies that really rides the line of, can you take this seriously or not?
So,
Yeah.
back in the days when I briefly habitated a trailer park, in a trailer park, these were not good times. I had 2 roommates that were goth chicks, of which Mike was dating
if you were
one of
living
them.
with 2 goth chicks, how bad a time could it be?
Goth chick strippers. Worse than you think.
All right, I'll take your word for it.
They took forever to go anywhere.
It's true.
3 hours. How do I look in this? You look like a half-naked goth chick.
You look like a goth. You look goth.
So
You're not as goth
my
as
2
Mary
roommates-
Shelley, but you're goth.
My 2 roommates, Mike was over, and we were going to watch Interview with the Vampire. But these roommates knew me and Mike all too well, and that, in fact, that we were going to be yelling, Behold! every 5 minutes through that movie. And so they told me, like, all right, you 2 are restricted to, like, 10 during this whole film. Like, I can't make it through the first half hour with 10.
So we had to get really creative to keep this limit, because I believe one of them actually had like a super soaker, and she just was gonna like hose us down if we exceeded our limit of 10 beholds. So like we were just like, all right, fine, well, I guess we're just gonna have to really try to MST3K this thing, and we did actually to devastating effect. But,
I believe it. I
recall, Mr. Dower, witness the beeve.
Yeah, that was it's the moment where they're in the theater and they tear the sacrificial victim's clothing off, and you get like a full frontal scene with the to be victim. So I had seen this movie before, and I was just like, in the lead up, I was like, witness the beeve, and like said beeve like right when they like tear her clothes off, and there's this pause in the room, and then one of his roommates was like, Mike, that was really fucked up, and like they were both like everybody was laughing at that point. But I mean, it was just the evening was full of moments like that, and it's just I
think
it's an example of a film that takes itself so seriously that you just kind of have to laugh at it at points. It's,
right.
The melodrama is just it goes beyond pathos and into absurdity, right?
Right. So. And it's funny, we were talking about vampire comedy. You suggested it last month, and what I kept thinking about was Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is kind of which came out the year before.
Very similar.
And this was meant to be this epic, and it was epic in certain ways. Like the beginning of it is epic, and the ending of it is pretty great. But in the middle is Varney the Vampire. It's every 19th century melodrama cliche. You expect Dudley Do-Right to show up at one point.
It's very Penny Dreadful.
And I'm not certain that Anthony Hopkins didn't do that on purpose, because that is the worst Van Helsing of all time. And this is Anthony Hopkins we're talking about, and he looks like he does not care and is like taking laughing gas when he's off set. It's absurd.
I bet him and Gary Oldman had some kind of bet going.
Yeah, probably.
Gary Oldman's really good at it, though. Like he's
That's probably what part of the bet is. All right, so Rob, here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to schlock it up, and you're gonna act dignified and fuck with everyone.
Yeah. And you've got, and who else do you have? You have Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, and Winona Ryder
for some reason.
Yeah, well, that was the era where they just put him in like whatever movie. Like he was in Dangerous Liaisons as well, and like he was the weakest link in that film.
He was, but he's in it so little that it didn't bother me so much. You're just like,
yeah, but he was also
here's
in
Keanu Reeves in this movie, and that's fine.
Well, he was also in Much to Do About Nothing, which has Michael Keaton as the clown. Hell, so I am an ass.
Yeah, but that's a perfect Michael Keaton role, and
that is a good Michael Keaton role.
I had forgotten about that film version of Much Ado About Nothing, which is weird because in college I did a stage version that was like entirely beholden to it, because this was also the 90s. Like I wore that kind of uniform. I was Don Pedro, which means I had like some lines. It was fine. It was a good show, but I'd forgotten about that film's existence and that it had Keanu Reeves in it. All I can think of is just Keanu Reeves going, "I know where the bastard sleeps." He should never do an English accent. At least Winona Ryder, she's a little bit better, but it's still that kind of that would be most good vibe happening, and I don't know.
Like I'm gonna say, Keanu Reeves really kind of reached his peak during that era, during the Bill and Ted, which he starred with Alex Winter, and Alex Winter was in The Lost Boys. Back to the vampires. Lost Boys, not very funny. Entertaining, not.
It's an entertaining film. It's an example of actually a good vampire movie, I think. But like, yeah,
I haven't seen it.
So
I haven't seen The Lost
Boys.
Worth it.
Lost Boys.
I know. Do I even 80s right? I know.
Oh no, it's a classic.
I've never seen The Lost Boys. My Corey Haim, Corey Feldman movie is License to Drive, which I've seen way more times than I should have.
Why? Why would you do that more than once?
Because I was a kid. Like I literally saw that in the 80s. Like it was like on HBO, and I watched it.
Fair.
Yes.
Because when you were a kid, you just watched whatever was on HBO. That's just what you did. It was on. You watched it.
I watched whatever my best friend had on VHS.
Yeah.
That's how you got to see what is it? Dracula and the Seven Golden Vampires, right?
Oh no, I rented that as an adult.
Oh, all right. Sweet.
That's how I got to see Heavy Metal the movie on Beta.
Now, Heavy Metal I have seen, but that's a whole other kind of flick.
That is
very different.
Yeah. So, so we've got like in the 90s, we've got Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is almost good, but is also like all over the place. Interesting visually, but really weirdly acted.
Yeah.
Like the visuals are the most interesting part of Bram Stoker's Dracula, but because of the way it's acted and the way that Coppola didn't seem to care, like it becomes hilarious halfway through.
Should have put his nephew in it.
When he, I think at that point Coppola had started, it was sort of apparent that Coppola had started to slip, because he had done, I think he did The Godfather Part 3 before Dracula, didn't he?
Yeah, that was 1990, and that was...
And people were like, what the fuck is this?
That was garbage.
It was terrible. And then he went and did Dracula, and they were like, all right, well, I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, we're like, all right, it's Dracula.
Yeah,
Like, yeah. That was,
it's a shame because I remember seeing that, like the beginning of it when I was like 16 when it first popped on HBO, and I saw like the first 5 minutes of it, which is about Vlad the Impaler, and it brings that whole storyline into it, and I really enjoyed the historicity that they brought into it, and then it was like 9:30 or something. It was late at night, and it was a school night. My dad was like, "Go to bed." I was like, "All right, fine." But I finally got to watch it, like the actual movie, and I was confused because I really wanted to like it, and it just became ridiculous, laughable.
I mean, the book itself is essentially, it's an elevated Penny Dreadful. It was written as trash, as like a trash novel, and it is essentially a trash novel.
That raises the question of like, is any vampire story is it ever above trash? Because we're talking about something that emerged out of folk legend. So like, is Varney? Is there a good vampire story that isn't trash? Like,
cinema-wise, yeah.
I'm talking about the story itself.
Book-wise,
because Interview with the Vampire, that was one of those moments in the 90s that tried to, like... It was based on a novel that was, like, a reimagining of the genre, because the genre was in need of reimagining.
Sure.
And it took off. It was an interesting take on the story. It was kind of postmodern. It kind of addressed the tropes, in a postmodern kind of a way. Like, actually, I'm quite fond of looking at crucifixes, that kind of thing. The movie was hilarious because the combination of Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt is hilarious.
You wouldn't see them working together today, would you?
No, you never see that. That's not a combination that works. I don't know, maybe it's Pitt that's the problem. I can't tell which one of them doesn't belong in that movie. I feel like it's Brad Pitt, but I can't swear to it.
I feel like it's both of them don't belong as ambiguously gay vampires in a movie together. They should have been named Ace and Gary and just got it out of the way.
Yeah. Well, because in the novel, I mean, that's more than ambiguously. Like, it's there. It's a thing. So yeah, I don't know who do you cast in that part.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was
not Stuart Townsend.
I don't get that.
They did a follow-up movie, Queen of the Damned, and he was Stuart Townsend was cast as Lestat.
I never saw.
I'm like, you
that.
look like a fucking crow, dude.
I never saw
literally,
that.
Dude looked like a budget knockoff crow in that. I'm like, Jesus, dude.
Yeah.
How's that even Lestat?
It's right. And I think if you look at the story in text form, you can do other things with it. But when you elevate it to the big screen, it becomes formula.
Sure.
And then you have to come up with a way to reimagine it. Like there was Nosferatu in the silent era, which was basically Dracula, but they didn't have the rights to it, so they just changed all the names to everything, and it's considered a masterpiece. And then they did actual Lugosi Dracula, and then they did 1 million of those.
Yep.
In the 30s, and by the time you get to the 40s, he's second billing to Abbott and Costello, and the tropes have become tropey and ridiculous. And I Was a Teenage Vampire, and then Hammer Horror does a reimagining starting in the early 60s. Christopher Lee. They don't really reimagine it so much as like breathe new life into it by like adding a little more production value.
Yeah.
And then
better effects,
better production value. That came later. Like if you look at like the early Christopher Lee vampire movies, it's basically the same story as Dracula, and it was England in the early 60s, and they hadn't what you're talking about, Kieran, came later, like the late 60s, especially the early 70s, and that's when it became pornography.
Yeah.
An interesting film came out of the Hammer vampire films, Cat 2, actually. One, which deserves a read, is Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter, which is a remarkably good film. I watched it.
I've seen that several times. It is, for what it is, a B-movie vampire flick. It's both interesting and that there's actually a twist at the end that's semi-unexpected. It's not actually... There's no Dracula in it. It kind of like... It reimagines all the pieces and puts it together in a really interesting way. So I agree with you, Kieran. Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter is a good one.
I'll have to check that out. I haven't seen it.
The Shaw Brothers one that we mentioned earlier that they did with Hammer is Dracula and the Seven Golden Vampires, which holds up remarkably well as a kung fu movie.
I mean, with a title like that, how can you go wrong? How can you go wrong?
I don't think you can, but they only did one.
The Seven Golden Vampires. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So we're kind of talking about vampire movies that are like unintentionally funny. Like Bram Stoker's Dracula is unintentionally funny. Interview with the Vampire is unintentionally funny. And I think if you go back and watch a lot of old ones, they become unintentionally funny unless they're well made.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the Lugosi Dracula, like, it's 1931. They just discovered how to make sound in movies. And so you kind of have to grade it on a curve, but it's okay. It's not a bad flick for all of that. There's some nice intensity
at least
to
they got a Hungarian lead, which Hungary isn't Romania, but it's close.
It's close. It's super close. And they that gives it some authenticity that it would otherwise have been lacking. But, you know... Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. That's even if you like Abbott and Costello, it's kind of
and then there's the Dracula of Monster Squad.
That's another one I haven't seen. I don't know if I belong doing this podcast.
Oh, you do. It's an 80s one in which the primary line from it I can remember is, kick him in the nards, kick him in the... I don't think werewolves have nards.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember people quoting that to me, and I'd never seen it. So I think that's the only thing anyone remembers from that movie. And it makes them feel like they've seen it, but they haven't.
It's not terribly remarkable of a film. I've watched it twice.
It's really not, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like The Goonies meets Universal Films.
Oh, God, that was a movie I've seen so many times. Because it was on HBO. So, you know, like, the TV's on, watching HBO, here's the Goonies. How many times have I watched this? I have no idea, but I'm going to watch it again.
Because we were talking about 90s vampire movies and that were sort of unintentionally funny, but then there was the Mel Brooks film from the 90s. It was Dracula, Dead and Loving It, which attempted to be funny.
Yeah, that's definitely... that's definitely sub-quality Mel Brooks.
It is.
The first vampire film
towards the end of his career
that was comedy would have been... It was a Jim Carrey film, Once Bitten.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, yep.
I haven't seen it, but yes.
Basic 80s kind of teenage comedy plot.
Yeah, I get that kind of Weekend at Bernie's vibe from it.
Basically, to summarize, Jim Carrey plays this character who's a virgin, and the vampire lady that's preying on him can only drink virgin blood to maintain her youthful continence.
Oh, so it's a Bathory type story.
Kind of, sorta.
Okay.
And it follows a general, like... And he's got a girlfriend, and, like... He's falling under the sway of the vampire, so he's becoming a vampire. He's dressed in black. He's wearing Chuck Taylors. I don't know that Chuck Taylor's a vampire, but hey, that's how they...
All Goths wear Chuck Taylors. Everyone knows that.
I mean, I certainly did. Certainly do, actually. And... You know, that the basic punchline of the movie is that the vampire and his girlfriend get into a dance-off on Halloween, and they get chased down by the vampire and the minions, and then him and his girlfriend jump into the coffin, and then when they come out of the coffin, they've already banged, so the vampire can no longer feed off of him. Because he's no longer a virgin.
Oh,
Cue,
okay.
vampire lady becomes old.
So it's the reverse of the slasher movie trope.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, yep. Well played. Well played.
I think it was his first film. Now, Nicolas Cage was in a vampire flick called Kiss of the Vampire, but I've never seen it, and
Yeah.
I don't know if it's funny. It's unintentionally so.
Well, it's the Nick Cage question. You know, it's the Nick Cage in the box, and you don't know what kind of Nick Cage you're going to get until you open the box. It's
yeah, Schrodinger's actor.
Schrodinger's actor, yeah. Like, it could be great, or it could be a nightmare.
To be fair, I don't think Nick Cage knows what kind of Nick Cage he's going to get until he shows up on set, and then he just tries to like make his way through and collect the check.
Nick Cage just goes on, and whatever comes out, man. That's just how it be.
Comes out, yeah.
It is what it is.
Comic number 1
I think that's pretty much how that goes.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so what makes vampires risible? What makes them funny? I'm going to get meta for a second here. What makes them funny?
Well, what makes them funny is what makes them scary. Or rather, it is because that inherently the idea of mankind not being the top of the food chain and being a prey animal instead of the top predator, that's a fearful thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think vampires are laughed at out of that fear.
Okay. Yeah.
If you take something that is scary and uncomfortable, and then you turn comedy upon it,
Okay.
parody upon it, it then is no longer scary.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's what. But then there's some separate elements, like just the overblown dramaticism of vampires.
Right, because they're
Melodrama. Yeah.
They are,
that 19th century melodrama vibe.
and like the greatest weakness of the vampire is not sunlight, garlic, holy. What the greatest weakness of the vampire is its inability to stop talking shit. Vampires must talk endless shit until someone has to kill them because they have talked too much fucking shit.
That was what the good thing about the Christopher Lee movies was, that he hardly ever said anything. That was the
Right.
one. That was the one variation that the Hammer horror films did, was to make him a little more monstrous. You know,
Right.
he doesn't speak. He's kind of like Jaws that way. Like, you can
He's a
see
bit of a cipher.
see the face, but it's just the face of a predator. Lifeless eyes like a doll's eyes, and it bites into you. Doesn't seem to be living. Anyway, we delivered the bomb.
But yeah, no, vampires are overblown and dramatic as fuck.
Yeah, and I think they're
there's
very
just no getting away.
they're very tropey. Like, they have all these rules attached to them, and whenever something has a rigid set of rules, you can, like, find ways to subvert that quite easily. Which is what Mel Brooks was trying to do,
Yeah.
but that was definitely the end of Mel Brooks' career, and I think he just didn't... I think he forgot how to direct.
Yeah.
Because
I
I
think
see the
it's-
same thing in Robin Hood, which came out a couple of years before, Robin Hood Men in Tights, which should have been really funny. And there were even musical numbers that were memorable in it. And I've never seen anyone do a better Errol Flynn impression than Cary Elwes.
True.
Cary Elwes really got hosed by the system. He should have become Errol Flynn and done nothing but swashbuckler movies after Princess Bride, and that would have been great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just like, you know, the Red Hawk or Pirates of this, or just, that would have been fantastic.
Scarlet Pimpernel.
Exactly, man. Like,
Yeah.
Cary Elwes
The
got
Count
hosed.
of Monte Cristo.
Yes!
He'd have done a good Count of Monte
He'd been
Cristo.
a
Nah, I
great
would've
Connie
watched
Monte
that.
Cristo,
Watched the shit out of that.
Or Scarlet Pimpernel. He would have been perfect for that. But anyway, sidebar. The problem with Robin Hood is the direction and the editing, which is so flat, and it needs life, and it doesn't have any life, and like, he holds on shots like white men can't jump, you know, which is like a very topical joke because it came right after that movie, but it, like, the shot holds on him after he said the joke and already reacted to it, and any possible mirth, it just vanishes away. And the whole movie's like that. It's just really badly edited.
The
And
thing about good Mel Brooks movies is that there's an overarching message in it that, you know, a systematic issue. It's like Blazing Saddles. Blazing Saddles is addressing many systematic issues.
Right. Blazing Saddles is
going
about
off the time.
racism and other things.
Yes.
And what's Robin Hood Men in Tights about?
Nothing really.
Nothing.
Yeah.
It's like...
I mean, Robin Hood movie that Prince of Thieves or whatever that that Kevin Costner did, and it became like some phenomenon for like no real good reason other than the fact that like the movie Costner had done before that was Dances with Wolves, I think.
Yeah, that movie isn't. I saw that one a lot, Prince of Thieves, and it's not bad.
Alan Rickman eats up the scenery.
Alan Rickman eats the scenery, but it's not bad. I mean, it's certainly, I think, more memorable than any of the times they tried to reboot Robin Hood since.
Yeah.
Yeah, Costner's not right in it, but that's okay.
No, it's not it's they really tried to hype it up back in the day and like sort of make it out to be this epic, and it was just kind of like an okay movie.
Yeah.
And and that was sort of the same thing that happened with Dracula. To bring it back, like with Ford Coppola's Dracula, like there was just a shit ton of hype, and then it was just like, nah, it's okay.
It's just okay. It's just okay. As I said, visually really interesting, but overacted. And Dracula Dead and Loving It. I think I've seen it once, and I only laughed at one line, which was the gynecology line, which is the only funny line in that movie. Other than that, it's just like, okay, we're sending up this. Okay, we're sending up this. But it feels very Abbott and Costello. And I think what happens with this story, this vampire story, which is very much like a set of tropes that you can like mess around with, is that they do a bunch of them, and then it gets super tired, and then it becomes a parody of itself, and then somebody has to come along and like reimagine it. And in between those moments, it can become incredibly comedic. Like, I feel as though in the late 60s they were doing some parodies of vampire movies, like Fearless Vampire Killers. Wasn't that a Roman Polanski movie? I want to say that's Polanski. I'm looking this up.
Maybe, I don't know.
I'm looking this up. Oh. Fearless Vampire Killers. It's a movie, and it's a song by Bad Brains. Yep! Roman Polanski. The Fearless Vampire Killers, Roman Polanski, 1967. Huh. So this is at the tail end of what Hammer Horror hath wrought. Right before it all became pornography with like vampire lovers and all that business. So yeah, I think it's all very cyclical.
What year was that again?
1967. Sharon Tate's in it.
Yeah, I was 2 years
because
before she died.
Of course she is.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but I haven't seen this, so I have no idea. I probably will try to watch it now. Even though I don't generally go out of my way to watch Roman Polanski movies.
Touche.
Yeah.
I think I saw his... Did I see his Macbeth? I saw his Macbeth.
That's supposed to be really good.
Yeah.
His Macbeth is supposed to be really good. I've never seen it, though. But, yeah, I think it's cyclical.
It is cyclical. So the movie, at least modern-wise, that does the vampire is the eponymous, and now What We Do in the Shadows.
What We Do in the Shadows.
New Zealand production.
Yes, based on film of same name, which is now
glorious.
TV show. Yeah.
Hilarious film.
I enjoy that. That's one of the few TV shows I make a point of watching regularly. My wife loves it, too. She's a huge fan, and that's...
Mine too.
And I think bringing the mockumentary element to a vampire thing is a good idea, because I think it
absolutely
finds that right vein of comedy, because the joke of every mockumentary is the person on camera does not get that they are incompetent.
Right.
It's Dunning-Kruger the movie, and so that's doing this with vampires because they're so tropey. Is perfect.
No, it was genius.
And I wasn't sure the TV show was going to work after the movie, because the movie was just a piece of fucking cinematic genius.
Mm-hmm.
Just absolutely glorious.
I think the TV writing is good, because they've made a point of focusing on the characters and giving us a little something to care about. So, like, they're not just like trash that we can throw away. Like, we genuinely want to hang out with characters every week, which is what you want in a TV show.
No,
And
absolutely.
Just there's so many funny moments in it. Something that sticks out in my mind is like Nandor is saying he doesn't believe in ghosts. He's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And he's like, wait a minute. I've seen a Babadook, a zombie, a witch, but ghosts are where we draw the line? That's a bridge too far? Is ghosts?
It was so good.
That's marvelous.
And then they have like the seance and they like summon the ghosts and they're like, whoa, wait a minute. They summon their own ghosts and they're like, oh, this is weird.
Nandor's like, I don't even speak that language anymore.
He's like, I don't know what he's saying. And he's like, he just keeps repeating this one word and he's like, oh wait, I remember. That was my horse. That was my best horse. Oh, damn it. And they're like trying to find the ghost of the horse.
Oh, that is so great. Yeah, there's always a sense of impending doom, and they're like, I really don't know what's happening.
The Vampire Council episode was pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That one was real good.
Yeah.
That had the original 3 from the movie in it.
I remember that. That was a nice touch.
That was a really good one. The Mark Hamill episode. Oh my fucking god!
I didn't realize until the end that was Mark Hamill. I didn't pick up on that because of how old Mark Hamill is. He's old.
He is.
He's really old.
Hey man, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
A really long time ago, and a really far, far away galaxy, and it apparently took him a really long time to get here to do what we do in Shadows, because I didn't realize it was him, because he's old and like make-upped out, so I didn't get it. But I love that episode.
Hamming it up.
I love that episode because the dude like puts on a specific pair of jeans and puts a toothpick in his mouth, and suddenly no one can recognize him.
Laszlo.
Yep.
Laszlo's like, I have this whole persona that I put on, and I do this all the time. Here are the jeans. Put them on. Toothpick in the mouth. Where did Laszlo go?
And it actually works.
And it works.
Yes, it's hilarious.
It keeps working every time. It's like, there's no way this works, but it keeps working. And that's funny. When you get to spread the incompetence around, so that's not just one person that's the butt of the joke all the time, but everyone's missing out on something. That's what we said about Archer last time.
Yeah,
That made it good. You spread that around so that it's equalized.
My favorite character might actually be Laszlo, just because he's perhaps the most incompetent.
I'm kind of a Laszlo fan.
He actually kind of ends up doing fairly well for himself, like throughout the whole series. But like, I just like one of the things that I think is hilarious every time is whenever he transforms, he's like Bat, just like and becomes the Bat
and becomes Bat.
So remember the Baron that died in season 1?
Oh God, yes.
That was Doug Jones.
Ah, yes.
Doug Jones.
Oh, you've seen Doug Jones, but you've rarely heard him. Like, he was the zombie in Hocus Pocus. He was...
yeah, okay.
Abe Sapien in Hellboy.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
He was the creature in the... What do you call it? The water? What was that one? The romance one with the fish critter and the woman.
The one that won the
Shape of Water?
Shape of Water?
Something like that.
Shape of Water, yeah. So the
Pale Man
and the Child Eater or whatever in
Yeah.
Pan's Labyrinth.
Okay,
One
so
of the only films.
he seems to play the same kind of character then.
He's a physical.
Well, he's
actor.
usually the guy in the rubber suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like one of the only films he's been in where he's not heavily made up or wearing like a rubber suit is John Dies at the End.
Oh, right. I remember that.
He's also the Silver Surfer.
Is he really?
In that one, yeah, he was the Silver Surfer in that one Fantastic Four movie, the sequel. But yeah, he's a physical body actor. He usually plays the dude in the creature suit.
Okay.
And he was in that as the Baron, and I think he actually got to use his own voice.
Well, that's cool. Good for him.
So yeah, you get a lot of nice little people that pop in.
Mm-hmm.
I like the character of Gregor in that Nadja's a reincarnated human lover.
Oh, right, that she keeps trying. That is such a hilarious relationship because she likes him in a certain way, and then she's tired of him, and then she likes him, and then she's tired of him. Nadia is also a hilarious character. My wife is a huge Nadia fan.
Nadja's a trip.
Nadja's a trip. Their whole relationship is great, and both because they both care and don't care in equal measures. And I enjoy that. I think the funny
Look,
part...
I have made a hedge that looks like my wife's vulva.
My erotic topiary. We're just like, of course this is... We're like, yeah, of course this is your hobby. Like, of course this would be the hobby that you would have. God.
Right, yeah.
It's so funny.
Laszlo's...
Nadia also gets the most, like, direct looks at the camera and is just, like, makes the, you see this shit, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is...
I think with the mockumentary TV shows, which is a strange genre, there's always those kind of balanced characters. There's the one that's most insane and does not care, and that's clearly Laszlo. And then there's the one who's trying to be the boss of things but doesn't know how to be the boss of things, and that's clearly Nandor. And then there's the characters that, like, look at the camera and be like, this is my life. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? This is my life right now. And I can't escape ever. And
I think
and then there's the energy vampire.
G-vampire, yes. Colin Robinson.
The most boring name in the history of boring names. Colin Robinson. It's like a nap in a name.
I'm looking at something, and it shows how well they were telegraphed, that they knew where they were going with this series, and that the familiar of Nandor, Guillermo, well, his full name is Guillermo de la Cruz.
Yeah, Guillermo of the
Guillermo
Cross.
of the Cross.
Yeah. That's also a fun thing that the show does, is it's kind of takes that Guillermo character and makes him carry a lot of the show's emotional weight. He's this kid who wants to be a vampire, and he keeps not being a vampire because Nandor doesn't care. But he ends up discovering that he's a descendant of a Van Helsing type of person. He might actually be descendant of the Van Helsing.
He is, in fact, a Van Helsing.
Yeah. So inadvertently, he starts slaying vampires, and the implication throughout the second season is that he's dusted a lot. To protect his people, to protect his vampires in a certain degree, but also just because he seems to have a talent for it, and that seems to be that's going to come to a head. So all the show seems to have a nice arc that has real drama to it, which I think elevates it above other mockumentaries.
I agree.
Yeah, because I can't care that much about The Office. I get it. The guy doesn't know what he's doing. No one really does. But it's very same every week.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of was surprised at how long that show went on for, because it just kind of seems like it's the same joke over and over again.
I think everyone just really related to The Office.
You know?
Yeah,
I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
And let's face it, vampires, if you take the piss out of them, is funny.
Yeah. To bring down what is high and sublime and drag it through into the mud, that's, like you were saying, Kieran, what could be more worthy of that than something that actually preys on us? In a supernatural kind of a way. Like, you're not just bringing down, like, an animal. You're bringing down a demon.
I think vampires often get used as a symbol for, like, the aristocracy or the ruling class of a bygone era.
Yes.
So there's sort of this... They're also, like, this symbolic authority, which comes with being, a bigger predator than the human race.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take the seriousness out of that, and you pull it down and you make fun of it, it's in a manner of speaking, it's a bit like political satire.
Yeah.
Because you're lampooning authority. You're making fun of people in positions of power. Mm-hmm. So I think it's actually there's a pretty strong parallel there too.
Oh yeah, it's almost like a supernatural satire. which carries no hint of blasphemy.
Right.
You know, it's not going to be controversial to make fun of vampires.
No.
People get more mad if you do the lore wrong, which is.
Well, what I found funny in the movie version of it, in the 4 characters, is that, you know, you've got, like, in the introduction, it's like you're introduced to Deacon, and it's these, you know, and then there's Viago's trying to get all his roommates together for a house meeting, and Deacon, he's like, "Hey, Deacon, well, how you doing? Last night I turned into a dog and I had sex." Now, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah,
then he goes to Vladislav's room.
Best not to, though.
And Vladislav, he opens the door, and like Vladislav is in a giant bed with writhing
like women
brides of Dracula around him.
Whatever's
and
going
then
on
he comes
there.
To the door. What? Going
What?
to need 20 more minutes. Yeah. And then to the basement with a chicken to get to Pietro. Pietro.
Right, and here's these horrible, demonic beings that are doing unspeakable things, and you're treating it as just this like day in the life of. Definitely reduces the horror of it, and finds a way to bring them down to a level where they could be dealt with.
It's like, where's Pietro? Pietro's 4,000 years old. He doesn't have to come to the meeting.
Like, go ahead, Mike.
Oh no, sorry. Go ahead.
The one thrall in the movie, who's the woman who has a family, and
Jackie, yeah,
she's clearly just this overworked assistant, and she's just an overworked assistant, and that's all she is. And the fact that she's happens to be serving a vampire is completely incidental, and that's kind of like takes those like hapless, pathetic Renfield slaves and reduces them to just like somebody who's working a job. Just somebody who's overworked, like we all are.
And then they get Nick by accident. And Nick is the clueless modern vampire that gets in bat fights with Deacon. And bat fight!
Well,
and tries to eat a French fry, and that goes poorly for him.
Oh, right. Remember on the show where they ate food? What was the pizza that they ate that made them, like, vomit through the skies? What was that?
I forget.
Was it anchovies?
Something.
It was something.
I remember that.
And then they went to a rave and got drug blood.
Yeah.
I am on the drug blood, and now I have a traffic cone on my head. And like,
right, that's the same thing. Like they're just decadent party snobs.
One of the things I love about the opening scene in the movie for What We Do in the Shadows is like you get this like intro to the characters, but the whole point of it is so they can have this really banal like house meeting where they just want to tell the one dude to do his fucking dishes. Like that's it. Like we're gonna have this meeting because we need you to clean up, and they're like, the point is, Deacon, you have not done the dishes in 5 years, and they like point at the little dial, and it's like 5 years.
Yeah.
And they have like the whole standoff. It's like, fine, I'll do my dishes. So good.
Yeah, I love that.
But it's totally like casting them down and just being like, no, I mean, this is, it's like, oh yeah, immortal vampires, do your fucking dishes, there, Vlad,
Do your dishes or get someone to do your dishes, because dishes still have to be done. There's some, so yeah, I guess we're humanizing vampires. I guess that's what's happening.
But they're failing as humans.
Right, they're
terribly.
They're not good
at the mundanity of humanity.
Yeah, they're not good at being humans because they're not. So they're incapable of doing that either.
I mean, the whole proposition of vampires and vampirism gets pretty absurd when you actually try to it's great for these like really cinematic moments and like these sort of for like sweeping melodrama, but like what do these people do when they're like not having these moments? Like it's still probably like surprisingly banal and like well that was
yeah, it can't be exciting all the time. And
right. Can't be feeding on gamblers and strippers all the time, you know?
And I think that's what the clever thing Anne Rice did in her stories was like, you know, when it gets boring, just like bury yourself for a century or two and take a dirt nap. You'll be fine. Come up again when it's interesting again. You won't be because it gets tiresome after a while, which is the other the thing about it of lasting that long. And, like, the joke that you mentioned about he's 4,000 years old, he doesn't have to do anything. In a certain sense, all vampires become Wowbagger, the infinitely prolonged. Time just mashes you down, and you no longer have any reference to the world you're living in. And so, what can you do but be confused? And so, in a sense, you eventually do become senile, even if as a vampire.
Vampires are especially easy to parody if you've been on the goth scene.
Now that's where I have to yield the floor to you guys, because I have no idea about that.
Well,
Mike's shaking his head, just like,
how do we lead into this?
I'm not saying anything else, man.
You know what this is leading up to. You know who this is leading up to.
I guess.
I know who this is leading up to. You mentioned it last month when we were recording. It's like, this is the joke.
It's a vampire. The vampire.
Behold!
Yeah. Nah, I mean, that was sort of like the ultimate parody we came up with, because we're just like...
Set the scene for me. What's going on where you came up with this?
So, as far as I remember, I had a friend of mine named Jay who used to go into chat channels, like on the web, like, you know, dark web stuff, where people were like, I'm a vampire! And he was just like, well, so I am too, but I don't really know if I should talk about this. We're like, oh no, you know, talk to us about it. And he's like, well, so I don't live on blood, I live on shit.
Oh.
And he's like, I am the vampire Defeces. And, like, I heard that, and it was just, like, a throwaway thing that he had, like, sort of done, and I've lost track of Jay, like, you know, years now, but I heard that, and I thought it was hilarious, because I was around people, and I was just like, vampire Defeces, vampire Defeces, vampire Defeces, vampire Defeces, like, looking at all these people going by. So I took that, and, like, kind of ran with it, and then Kieran and I were, like, playing off of each other, like, in terms of, like, oh, yes, no, and he, like, works at a shitty fast food restaurant during the day. He's, like, stalking goth chicks, trying to, like, you know, attach his face to their asses.
Oh, God.
You know, and that's, like, his, like, you know, that's, like, his mode of feeding.
I'm sorry I asked now.
So I was like, yeah, this is, like...
a ratty plastic Kmart cape.
Yeah, like he got from, like, the Halloween section at Kmart. And, you know, we were just like, oh,
and he
has
a face like a cat's ass.
Cat's ass, yeah, you know, just, like, trying to do the, like, imperious scowl, but he just kind of looks like he has a face like a cat's ass.
So he's like, honestly, we kind of based his appearance off of someone else we knew.
Okay.
Who was kind of... When the man danced, one can only describe it as a marionette with its strings cut.
Well,
I mean, it's pretty bad. Like, it's like Jean-Claude Van Damme levels of bad in terms of dancing. That's a real thing, actually. Like, if you haven't actually seen video of Jean-Claude Van Damme dancing and you want to be horrified, look that shit up, because it's terrifying.
Well, now I will. Jean-Claude Van Damme dancing. Okay.
But,
okay.
So we sort of based it off of this guy, and we were like, oh, you know, like, hey, aren't you that guy that works at Burger King? No. And like, I'm pretty sure you're that guy. And I was like, no, I've just got one of those faces. And he's like, no, I'm pretty sure you sold me some onion rings.
Like a cat's ass.
He's like, oh, you'd be surprised. Yeah.
Just like, the vampire Defeces is a vampire that is trod upon by everyone because he is pathetic, and no one's actually certain whether he's a vampire at all.
Or just a weird guy.
Or just some weird guy with, you know...
guy in his mid-30s hanging out at the goth club.
Yeah,
and
that's...
we all knew that dude in his 30s hanging out at the goth club.
See, I didn't. I didn't go to any goth clubs, and I'm kind of disappointed.
I mean, it's an experience.
You didn't really miss much.
Yeah.
You really didn't. I mean,
Every time I say that, Mike assures me, like, nah, it's fine.
Nah,
You're
it's
fine,
cool, man.
buddy.
It's cool, bro.
You're good.
You're all right.
You're
You're
good.
fine.
Let's put it this way, man. While there is high drama and entertainment to be had, do not get me wrong, the price of entry sometimes is a bit steep because sometimes you get involved in that drama, and that is not part of what you want in your life.
No.
You just want to be calm, drinking your infinite drinks until open bar is done.
Yeah.
And dancing hercules-jerkily to some freaking Skinny Puppy and call it a fucking night.
Yeah.
Maybe some Rob Zombie if you're lucky.
Yeah. It seems
But
like
then you make
it seems like that would be a scene that would attract people who want to wear their lives on their sleeves.
And then you make the mistake of dating a goth chick.
Yeah.
You know why you did it. You know exactly why you did it.
Well, it's
the generic you. Yes.
The goth part is kind of irrelevant. It's like you date the chick because you want to date chicks. That's just that is your function at one point in your life.
True.
And that has a certain aesthetic.
True. But sometimes certain aesthetics come with a lot of theatricness, and
Yeah.
when that spills over into your personal life, like, oh my fucking god.
Yeah.
What even is happening here?
Yeah. See,
Or
now
like it's
that would be an interesting series to see on television if someone did that, or if what we did in Doing Shadows found a way to like pull that in. You know what I mean? Like hanging out in the golf club, like a mockumentary about that, like something on the level of like Spinal Tap might be great.
There's some comedy gold moments for sure to be had.
Did I ever tell you, Mike, that my wife came up with a rival for the Vampire to Pieces?
I think I did hear about some of this. No, but go ahead, enlighten us.
Like, she'd heard some of the stories and I was recounting some of the kind, and she's like, does that mean like his rival / nemesis is the vampire Leshat? I'm like... I'm like, could be, honey. Could be.
Did you try really hard not to laugh at her joke, Kieran, so that, you wouldn't let her think she was too funny? Did you do that?
No, I laughed at it.
Good, because that was funny.
She has dad humored me enough that I've just groaned, but that one was honestly really good.
Yeah, that's a quality pun.
No,
and I just kind of picture him in the Vampire to Pieces having like a walk-off like in Zoolander. Only instead of David Bowie judging, it's Peter Murphy.
Yes! Yes! That...
And Peter Murphy's like, they said there'd be meth. Why am I here? Sorry, Uncle Pete. I'm not going to let that one go.
No.
Spider-Man, you're here at a live-action role-playing game. I was told there'd be goth chicks. You know what? I'm just going to be the elf that sits on this bench and eats the sandwich.
And eats a sandwich.
God bless you. God bless you, Twisted Mego Theater.
They were so good.
I was
such a great...
told there would be goth chicks. That's a meme on comic. Twitter. Goth chicks
funny
are
enough,
a meme on Twitter.
I did in fact once go to a vampire live-action role-playing game because my boy Yad's like, hey man, I got this character that you can play my character's like essentially Renfield, this ghoul, and did it. I said, can I be an asshole? Because I kind of want to be an asshole. It's like, how is that role-playing for you? I'm like, I mean, it's not, but if I got to deal with a bunch of highfalutin people dressed up all gothy and pretend to be vampires...
If I got to play Vampire the Masquerade, man...
And it was based off of that too. So I'm like, oh, in Richmond. So I'm like, oh god, man, this is home of a major art school. This is gonna be either unbearable or comedic gold.
Yeah,
I had a great time.
Yeah, that was another attempt to reinvent the genre. Was the whole Masquerade thing, because that came out in the 90s. That was after Interview with the Vampire. And the idea of a new kind of role-playing game, which I don't know how many of them there had been, because I don't know a whole lot about it.
Vampire-specific, not so much. You had the Ravenloft setting in D&D, which incidentally, my current D&D game I'm in, you'll see how this connects, is doing an adventure called The Curse of Strahd, which is basically you're in Transylvania dealing with essentially like Dracula, only super fucking powerful. Only a lot of us are old goths, so we're playing it for fucking laughs. Like, we're pretending that his castle Ravenloft has a food court in it. With an orange Julius. That's how we're playing it.
No one's drinking at the Orange Julius. Well, yeah, it's an Orange Julius. Nobody. That's what it does.
Like we just.
Hey, Stroud, do you want some Orange Julius? Oh yes, I'd love some.
But the top layer of Castle Ravenloft has like the world's biggest hot topic. And I'm curious to see how our DM is actually gonna. I suspect our DM is gonna play off Strahd as if he's Dr. Frankenfurter from Rocky Horror. We'll see.
That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it.
We are going full bore comedy on this motherfucker because we're playing D&D characters of mid-level, so our characters are fairly fucking powerful and fear little.
Yeah.
And are all played as smartasses anyway, so...
Yeah.
At least that's how I do mine.
You know, it's funny, you were talking earlier at the beginning about, talking back to Interview with the Vampire, and Rocky Horror popped in my mind. You know, the fact that you had very specific, behold! And that was like, let's do the time warp. That was like, where's your neck? You know, that kind of thing. What chicken stepped on your forehead?
So you are not unfamiliar with the live performances of Rocky there, my friend.
Well, no, I've never been to a live performance, but the first time I saw it, I'd seen it with people who had been, and so I was taught some of the lines.
Okay, that's just as good. That is just as good.
Yeah,
I took my two adoptive brothers to their first time to see the Rocky Horror Picture Show to Maryland University College Park, where the Satanic Mechanics would run their yearly Halloween one.
Uh-huh.
And that is where I met Robin.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Mr. McAdams, yes, way back in the day.
Was playing Eddie, and then they did a... what was it? An inverted cast for Rocky Horror, and they're like, "No, you still play Eddie." And Robin was just like, "What? Really? Okay, fine. Fucking, I'm doing it. Yeah. I like being Eddie. Fuck it.
I mean, good typecasting. But yeah, and so there is some, and you think about there is some crossover with the Rocky Horror Picture Show in vampire comedy because Dr. Frankenfurter is not a vampire, but he's definitely a vamp.
Yeah, and that's kind of I'm not exactly sure what the origin of Rocky Horror Picture Show was, but it was definitely a desire to...
I mean, drugs.
Sure, it was the 70s, but a lot of... a desire to make fun of a lot of tropes of horror pictures, because you've got, like, the house on top of the hill, and you've got, you know, zombies, and people frozen, and evil scientists, and aliens, and all sorts of madness. And I'm still not 100% certain if they intended that film to be ridiculous or if they just didn't care.
A little column A, little column B.
Little column A, little column B. Because it's a...
I think it was originally a play that Richard O'Brien had written.
Yeah, in London.
And and there were there were other like musical like numbers that were cut
that they dropped out
that they dropped that they're in the play that are not in the movie, and then they did the film, and the film's generally considered better than the play, but like it was not doing terribly well in the box office. But then apparently it was basically like the MST3K effect before there was MST3K.
Mm-hmm.
So they put it out in the theaters, and people were just like, "You got to see this movie. It's crazy." We just shout at it when we watch it, and it became people talking back at the movie was basically, you know, it is what made it the phenomenon that it is today, and that happened almost immediately after it came out.
That's great.
I mean, you got to figure they were doing that back in 77 at least, maybe 77, 78. Because my parents, who were poor and could not get babysitters, would take me with them to see the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Now
that explains a lot.
It don't explain a damn thing. But
okay, Kieran.
I tried to get them to explain a damn thing, and they were like, "Oh, well, the movie's about Halloween." And I'm like 3 or 4. I'm like, "Okay, that scans. It's about Halloween." Okay, because I had questions. I see it again as an adult, and I'm like, "The fuck even am I watching? I do not recall any of this at all except the songs." There was fucking in this? I don't remember there being fucking in this. Which goes to show that if you don't make a big deal about something to a kid, it's going to go right over their fucking head.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Because I didn't twig to none of that. Like, I just thought it was a Halloween movie with singing. There you go.
That was what
and
they told you it
toast at
was.
the screen. Yeah.
When do you throw toast at the screen?
Different parts.
Okay.
Keep in mind, different regions and even different times and different regions do different things.
Okay.
So this would have been 70s. By the time 80s and 90s went around, they weren't throwing stuff so much anymore, but you had, like, particular callback lines.
Yeah, like the
fucking neck one.
Yeah, where's your fucking neck? What diabolical chicken
neck?
stepped on your forehead? I'm Brad Majors. Asshole.
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 I'm Janet Weiss. Slut.
Yeah,
Not
slut.
Yep, yep. Janet.
Hi, Oblivion. Sorry about the dog. Yeah, no.
Riff, what's your favorite band? Madness. They suck.
Bitch, get your tits off my tank.
It's yeah. That's classic for something that is parody and is satirizing, even if it's not 100% clear what it's satirizing. And people found a way to make their own comedy out of it because it was oddly played really straight.
Yeah.
So I think that was what was intended to happen.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I don't know if they quite specifically predicted that, what it became.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it was, partially it was the result of, like, what Richard O'Brien intended, and then part of it was, like, the fan participation, and it was the fans that ultimately kind of turned it into a, it was people talking back to the movie that sort of, in an era where you didn't really do that.
No. No.
That was not something that you did in the 70s. Like, that was not something that commonly happened. That was not what people did in movie theaters. So, it was kind of this novel.
How many times would you go to a theater to see a movie back in the 70s? Like, okay, my parents took me to see Star Wars 10 times, but they were getting ready to drop a little brother on me, and bribery was necessary.
Yeah. I mean, people went to the movies a lot then, because it was relatively cheap entertainment. Popcorn was relatively inexpensive. And you just went to the movies. That's just what you did. You get out of the house, you see a movie. There's going to be a new movie every weekend. It's very different from what it is today. But you're right.
Yeah.
There was a definite sense of sacredness to the movie theater. Like, we're going to sit here and we're going to watch this movie and we're going to absorb it. So I can't imagine shouting at the screen back then.
Yeah, no, and it was it's like this spontaneous group thing that just kind of came up. Like, I mean, so I think I heard originally, like, the first place that really started happening was, like, in New York, and then, like, it just, like, spread.
Sure.
But
maybe...
And then, like, everybody was doing it, so...
But then you got to think about, like, if you're talking about the 70s, you're talking about, like, grindhouse cinema, which is not something you would approach with any degree of reverence or as art. I mean, it's kind of... it's kind of
70s.
disposable trash, and Rocky Horror definitely gives off a vibe of disposable trash. And sometimes vampire movies are disposable trash.
Disposable trash, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's what We Do in Shadows does well with. Like, we're supposed to take this seriously, but really, these people are ridiculous. This whole thing is ridiculous. And although it may be that this just isn't a time where we take that seriously. You said back in the our horror episode, Mike, when we were talking about vampires versus zombies, You had the economic argument of vampires versus zombies. Of, there are times when vampire stories are really popular based on how the economy's doing, and times when zombies are really popular based on how the economy's doing. I don't think either are popular right now.
No, not really. I mean, we had there was a huge sort of bumper crop of zombie movies in the aughts. Mm-hmm. You had a lot of zombie movies.
And The Walking Dead.
And The Walking Dead, yeah, sure. Well, I mean, The Walking Dead was a bit later. Like, that was more in, like, I think that was in 2010 that started, or 2011.
Oh, okay.
But,
I think you might be right.
Okay.
But,
when did,
before that...
But what about how do slasher films work into that? Because we got all the, Saw and that type of gore porn kind of thing. Or does that not correlate?
I don't think that correlates. I haven't seen any studies about that. I mean, slasher films were originally invented to basically keep teenagers from having sex. That's literally why
that worked real well.
That's literally why they were created. But I mean, there have been studies where, like, in eras of greater sort of popular economic prosperity, like, say, the 1990s, for example, you have this greater popularity for vampire films because there's more wealth. There's this more sort of like, hey, I could be rich and sophisticated. I want to watch monsters that are rich and sophisticated. Whereas when, the chips are down and the economy's not doing well, there's a tendency to make zombie movies because it's like this fear of the other and this fear of, like, the teeming masses outside my home that are just going to rush in and take me and my family away.
Yeah.
And that's...
Or give me the Rona.
And that... Right, yeah, or give me the coronavirus. So, like, you get the idea.
Oh, well, yeah. That might explain why neither are popular right now, because we spent a year inside. From a something that's not quite Black Plague level, but certainly something we've all been scared of.
I was disappointed to find out that my post-apocalyptic outfit, in fact, is not like leather and spikes and shit like that, but in fact is a pair of comfy sweatpants.
It's sweatpants
and a hoodie.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, man, I'm really scaring off all those cannibals out there at the door, aren't I?
Right. So what's, you know what? Now that I think about it, I have seen a couple of, there seems to be a minor boomlet, horror-wise, of making things that are like, I see some Lovecraft, they've been doing some takes on Lovecraft, and there's stuff like Mandy, where, which is another Nicolas Cage movie, yeah.
Yep.
Where there's just there's a sense of not quite understanding what it is that's being dealt with.
Is that kind of like Midsummer and Hereditary?
Yeah.
And The Witch.
Yeah. Or
like, the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
Like, what I think I know. I don't know what's going on here. Well, damn.
No, The Witch is great because it really spells out what it is pretty early on and plays the whole thing very straight, which is what I like about it. Like, it's just, yep, there's a witch in the woods. Yep, she just ate a baby. That just happened. This is not irony. This is happening. And there's the way it's shot and the way it's directed and the way it's acted gives a sense of horror and confusion. And I think that just may be that director. But there have been some other films where there's just a sense of confusion. And it maybe we're in that kind of an era. Another good movie I saw was called The Blackcoat's Daughter, which is just... I think it's by a same or similar director. This is also an A24 picture, but it was a demonic possession. And again, played very straight and matter-of-fact without a whole lot of... no real twist at the end. It's not a twist. It's done exactly the way you think it would be. But it's Yeah, it's not a tropey time in horror.
Did either of you two see The Autopsy of Jane Doe?
I did not.
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay, that's kind of in that same kind of vein because basically you have a mortician and his son, and they get a funeral home, and they get this body, and there's a lot of weird inconsistencies with it of what's going on. And, like, by the end of the film, you're not, like, they're dead, but you have no fucking idea what happened. Did the dead body do it? Was it a witch? Was it a spirit? What was it?
Yeah.
Because it just goes off the rails. Like, you know it's a horror movie by dint that it's advertised as a horror movie, but you're not real certain of what is the reality and what isn't the reality.
So it's one of those slow burn jobs. Kind of like The Shining.
Oh, yeah. It is very much suspense is what builds the terror and the fear.
Yeah, Black Coat's Daughter is like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, okay.
I don't think we'll be seeing much parodies of that kind of thing.
And The Witch is like that, and Hereditary is like that, and I think
Midsommar is like
Midsommar is like that.
Though Midsommar does follow some classic horror tropes that people just use their goddamn common sense and realize none of this seems like a good idea.
Yeah, just time to leave.
Just get the fuck out, man.
Run through the woods.
Get the fuck out. Like, oh, we're a private society out here. Like, the first people jumping off the fucking cliff and bashing their head in, I'd have been gone. I'm like, hey man, I gotta take a piss.
No,
real bad.
I
I'm
did
not
not
near your
come
facilities.
out here for a cult. Thank you so much.
I'll be right back. And then gone.
Yeah.
Like, where'd your friend go? He said he had to take a piss.
Yeah.
Gone.
Bye.
Don't tell them you're leaving. Just leave.
No, I gotta pee, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta pee.
Yeah.
Straight. I'm out. Now, Hereditary. That one, my wife predicted what the major tropes, what the major kick beats in it were, but she's a lot more familiar with a fan of horror than I am. But she called it, and I'm like, I can see that, but like, it wasn't necessarily obvious where they were going with it, at least not to me.
No, that had some surprises in it. Hereditary did.
Yeah, that's the kind of horror film that you don't yell at the people on the screen, "Get your ass out of there."
Yeah.
Whereas Midsommar was like, "Get your ass out of there." Get your ass out of it. No.
You're just like, just leave. No, just get out. Just leave.
Just leave. That solves the problem.
Like, shit going down, and you're not going to go home because you ain't going to be alive for it.
Well,
fuck
I mean, yeah, no, and I mean, and those were movies that just had that, that ambient sense of dread. I even thought that, like, Get Out has that, until you sort of get the reveal of what's really happening in Get Out, there's just this sort of ambient menace that you can't quite figure out what exactly is happening, and that's also certainly true in Midsommar, in Hereditary, in The Witch. And that seems to be, and that seems to be like where
the modern horror film is maybe more sophisticated or intellectual, or
I think it's just doing a different thing. It's a creeping dread because we know all the monsters now, and we've done all the monsters, and we've cycled through them several times. So, what's the most scary thing in the universe is the unknown.
It's true. I was watching. I still need to watch more of this. It's Lovecraft Country.
I have not watched that.
It's pretty good.
I've been saying that this entire episode. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that.
Well,
watch more things, Andrew.
I haven't seen Lovecraft Country either. It's on my list, but I haven't seen it yet.
Boy, our podcasts are going to sound dated as fucking 20 years, man.
Yeah.
I don't think any podcasts are for the ages.
No.
I think it's just, I think it's all podcasts.
Damn it, we're philosophical gold.
Well, we are. But I think it's all just trying to catch a moment and trying to figure out what's happening via conversation.
Very true.
Very true. Yeah. So we didn't really talk much about vampire comedy. Or did we?
We tried.
Well, we touched upon what makes vampires funny.
We did do that. And we enjoyed What We Do in Shadows because that's funny.
There's not a whole lot of vampire comedies that don't shit the bed, is the problem.
We did not enjoy Dracula Dead and Loving It because that's not funny.
I just wish it hadn't been his like last movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's the reason it was his last movie, because it was just...
Oh, yeah.
There was definitely a downward arc of Mel Brooks films from, like the last one that's, like, funny all the way through is Spaceballs.
Mm.
And that is just... I mean, it's just like, let's make fun of Star Wars.
That is pretty low-hanging fruit.
It's low-hanging fruit. And this is the 80s, when Star Wars was not as pathetic as it has become.
Prequels much?
What's that?
Prequels much?
Oh, yeah, it was before the
Yeah.
prequels. Spaceballs was 87.
Yep.
That was only...
Prequels and the sequels, not that... I mean, the sequels, some of them, but...
Let's not go there.
Not this episode.
No!
Not this episode.
No. Yeah, there's definitely a downward trend. And Robin Hood wasn't as funny. It would have been funnier if the editing had been better. And Dracula... I don't know. It just felt very tired. It felt like you were watching a stage play. Like a well-lit stage play. But the jokes were not very interesting or clever, and they didn't really land. It was all like, just no sex please, we're British. And, like, yes, that was probably just rib tickling in 1966, but you're 30 years off, Mel. All his films are parodies, though, when you think about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and I mean, one of my even though it's not the most even film of his, like I enjoyed History of the World Part 2 or Part 1 or whatever. Like that
used to be
that was amazing.
That used to be my favorite. I've seen it enough times so that the jokes aren't quite as funny to me anymore.
Sure.
I think for me it's a throw up between Young Dr. Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles
I have a
keeps
hard
getting
time picking
funnier
my favorite.
every time I watch it.
I have a hard time deciding which is funnier to me.
I really like Young Frankenstein, too. That was one of the movies my wife and I watched all the time when we were first dating. And we still sometimes do stuff like that to each other. We're like, you got it, mister. like do the elbow thing. Really, just, like, touch elbows. Lipstick, darling. Taffeta, darling. That kind of thing.
Frankenstein!
I'll take the blonde. You take the one in the toy bin.
It was, who was the person wearing Abby? Abby Normal, I think.
Yeah.
You gave me an abnormal brain!
Yeah.
Gene Wilder is just...
Yeah.
That's what the... No Gene Wilder.
I'm not the world's biggest Gene Wilder fan. And I know that.
I mean, him and Mel Brooks is a perfect combination. He's not necessarily as funny... he did good when his partnerships with Richard Pryor in a couple of films.
I can't speak to that, but I find... some of the things he does really annoys me. He's really good in Blazing Saddles, though, so I won't complain any further.
Yeah, and really good at Frankenstein.
Young Frankenstein is okay, and that's a horror parody of a genre that that is so nobody really knows how to do that anymore. Like the whole Dr. Frankenstein story, that's so beyond dead and buried that they try to revive it every now and again, and it's just. Yeah, like there was that.
You ever see
Victor Frankenstein movie a couple of years ago that was just schlock, and there was
a movie called The Bride with Sting as Victor von Frankenstein in it.
No,
and
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, but that's
yeah.
I haven't seen that.
It's a Frankenstein movie. Sting is the Dr. Frankenstein in it, and it's called The Bride because it's kind of like almost a Pygmalion kind of thing because he makes this perfect woman.
All right.
But in this one, Frankenstein, as he was in the book, is the villain, and it is the monster that is the hero in this sense, because he did.
The agent of righteousness.
The monster ends up teaming up with a circus dwarf because this takes place in medieval times, or kind of, sort of, or Victorian. It's hard to tell.
Okay.
And is mentored by the dwarf, and develops more humanity than his creator, who is becoming insanely controlling of the bride, his creation, who's just not that into him.
There's a lot of layers to that.
There are a lot.
There's a lot of layers to that, but yeah, that's a trope that's dead and buried, except for attempts to revive it. But Mel Brooks mined good comedy out of it in the '70s, So
yeah.
I think you can mind the comedy right. I don't know. It may be a bad time for it. Vampire movies are pretty much just B-grade schlock again now.
I'm surprised no one's tried to make a remake of The Mask of the Red Death recently.
Well, it
would be topical.
It would be topical. Someone
be.
might do it. Someone might do a Mask of the Red Death. One of my novellas was kind of based on kind of vibing off Mask of the Red Death. Party at the Last Tomorrow, but it was that was 2-3 years ago, and none of that was ever in UJ. So you probably wouldn't mention that.
Maybe that could be part of the Shallow and Pedantic collection.
Well, that's it's funny you mentioned that. Drunk Vampire Hunter does need to come out because there's going to be another one of his stories that's going to be mummy related in this new issue of UJ that's coming out this month.
Excellent.
And so
that ties in nice. I didn't even know that because that ties in nicely with what I did in the cover.
Yeah, that's going to look good. That's maybe one of the reasons I thought of it. Yeah, it's Drunk Vampire Hunter and a mummy. And how do you make mummies interesting? Because that's of all of the Universal monster tropes, that one is the deadest. Pun intended.
Depends on how you play with it, honestly. If you take a look at the traditional purpose of the mummy, in its religious aspects and cultural aspects of Egypt, you can mine a lot of horror out of it. But if you take it how it's played by Universal Pictures, it's just kind of like a zombie with bandages.
Yeah, but if you go by the Karloff one from 32, he pretty much removes the bandages pretty early on and dresses like he's hiding. It's almost like a Dracula movie, the original Mummy. But mummies seem to have slightly different powers, and it's very ill defined. I think I really do think the Brendan Fraser Mummy movie,
I was about to say
mined that material the best.
And it was fairly comedic too, but a good adventure yarn too.
Yeah,
pulpy. Very pulpy.
Very pulpy
it was
in
very
a
pulpy.
Good way. And it was very believable, and it set everything up nicely. But it did so with a kind of a comic spirit without parodying the material.
No. It looks at its ridiculousness, it smiles at it, but it doesn't point its fingers at it too much.
Yeah, you still have to knock the monster down because he's bad. He's
and let's be honest, a swarm of beetles trying to eat your flesh is pretty goddamn terrible.
Yeah. The horror stuff in that Mummy film are genuinely creepy and upsetting.
There's some pretty good things to be done with that kind of mythology.
Sure,
if you play it right.
Well, hopefully I
play it right.
Hopefully I play it right in this story that I still haven't finished. I have to do the third act of it yet. But yeah, I'm going to work on that this week. And the other thing that I'm doing, which is still very much in embryo, but I'm going to get it done. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I've got 2 pieces I'm working on, and I've got a goodly portion of one of them done, and the other one is still under 500 words, but it's coming along.
It'll come along.
Yeah, that's why I say I have the easy part of this in the Unnamed Journal. I just have to lay them out and make a good cover.
Yeah, well, you've done that already. The new cover looks awesome, Kieran.
Yeah, it looks like fire. It's awesome.
Thank you.
It does. It looks great. So that's...
Like I said, I'm starting to develop a style, and I'm going to try to carry that through whenever appropriate.
Yeah, it's really starting to look good. I really like it. You ask for an idea, and I give you one, and then it's always very exciting to see what you come up with.
Yeah. Well, I'm also getting much better with the particular tools that I'm using. I was already good with them, but the ways in which the software I use, the way it differs from Adobe, I'm picking up more of the intricacies, and I'm able to do really better and more complicated work because of that.
Yeah. Right. Cool.
And quicker.
Yeah.
That didn't take me very long at all. Mm-hmm. I figured out what elements I was going to need, and it's funny because when you said something to me kind of like you're like kind of like an Iron Maiden cover.
Yes.
I immediately thought
Yeah,
of the one with Eddie as the pharaoh. I'm like, I need an Egyptian background for this.
Yeah, and that worked because I'm doing the Mummy story. So that's going to be Unnamed Journal 26.
Yes.
26 on April the 15th. Yeah, that's going to be exciting. So
looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I mean, we gotta plug ourselves a little bit in our podcast, you know.
We got to.
No, for sure.
We got to. That's why it's here. Among other reasons, for its own sake. For its own sake, of course. Should we pin this turkey?
Yeah,
I think we've said what we can say about it for right now.
Yeah, we'll come back. We'll come back next month with something. Don't we have a planned thing we're going to talk about?
We have a list.
We have a list. I don't remember. It's not important.
We must consult the list.
The sacred tome.
The Necronomicon of Shallow and Pedantic.
The Necrononsense Con.
Necrononsense Con, yeah. That's
Open it up. What does it say? It just says words. I'm seriously, one of you fuckers just typed words over and over and over.
I see the word titties. I see titties. That was you, Kieran. Wasn't that one of my input?
You left me alone with the keyboard for 2 minutes. What do you think I was going to type? Yeah.
So, with that wonderful closing note in mind, let us say that this has been Shallow and Pedantic. I am Andrew.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Kieran.
And thank y'all for stopping by. We shall chat at you